This is Luke Paulson, the Catholic Conservative, and welcome to the news of the week for
January 27th, 2024.
And if you enjoy these videos, do not forget to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe for more.
The Uvalde Report. Uvalde was a tragedy. There is no other way to put it. A shooter entered the school and the police were called to stop him. Instead of doing anything at all, the police just stood around doing nothing. Now, those of us who were paying attention at the time already knew that. The fact that every single officer stood around twiddling his thumbs seems to imply that they got the order to stand down. Who would give the police the order to stand down in a situation like this? It could have been a conservative, but that would only make them look bad. Conservatives say that a good guy with a gun stops a bad guy with a gun. It could have been a liberal, but that would just be too obvious. Liberals believe that there needs to be 24-hour coverage of all of these tragedies so that they appear worse than they actually are. Who gave the order? I do not know, but it was probably someone who wanted a lot more gun control in America. DeSantis drops out. Ron DeSantis stepped down from the GOP primary. This leaves just neocon Nikki and President Trump, the latter of whom lost yet again in New Hampshire. President Trump has assured us that Ron DeSanctimonious will not be used again during the campaign. Florida needs Ron DeSantis just like Texas needs Greg Abbott. While there are a lot of battles that are going on at the national level, we need the individual states to be fortresses of freedom and liberty. The only way that tyrants can truly lose is if they cannot get a stronghold in key states. Florida, Texas, and others remaining strong no matter what are going to be key to victory. However, let us talk about international tyrants. Kerry cannot answer. It is no secret that electric cars are the biggest virtue signal of the green movement. They use coal or oil to power their lithium batteries and then pretend that they are better for the environment. Even more hilarious is that they are just sitting next to charging ports and becoming ice blocks because the batteries are worthless. However, something that would help the environment is carpooling, or in this case, jet pooling. John Kerry, while at the World Economic Forum, was asked about the utter hypocrisy of all of these jets and had this to say.
What's the carbon footprint of these events every single year that you come here? Think it's worth it? Peasants pay for your crimes?
That's a stupid question.
Is it really?
We're done. We are done now.
Don't grab me. Why do you think you're more important? Your carbon footprint doesn't matter, but everybody else around the world
Suggested that. Nobody ever suggested that. Don't make up stupid questions.
I think it is a legitimate question. If the goal is to cut down on carbon emissions to save the planet from a threat, doing everything that is in your power to stop it would be a good idea. However, he is too important to fly with us peasants or travel commercially. Enough about their hypocrisy. Let us talk about their moral debauchery. Escorts for the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum is attended by some of the most powerful and wealthy people in the world. Most of them were probably some of Epstein's clients, but they will never let the full list get out. Prostitutes of Davos, Switzerland are booked solid for all of the attendees. One report even said that these women are coming to Davos just for those attending the forum. When you abandon all morality, when you try to conquer the world, when you play God. This is all that is left. However, not everyone attending has completely lost their minds. J.P. Morgan on Trump. Jamie Dimon is the CEO of J.P. Morgan and had to admit that President Trump was right. The key aspect of President Trump's campaign was putting America and American jobs first. Whether this be the economy that grew remarkably under President Trump, securing the border against caravans, drug dealers, and human traffickers, not wanting America to pay for everything under NATO, or even seeing the threat that China poses. Dimon pointed out that people were not attracted to his rhetoric, which even some of his supporters have a problem with. They were attracted by his policy of making America great again. Pilot errors going up. I am sure that you have heard about the diversity hire pilots in Delta by now. Last week, I also reported that the FAA wants to start hiring people with psychiatric disabilities. When you are in a metal cylinder traveling 42,000 feet in the air at over 500 miles per hour, the last thing that should be of concern is the ethnicity or sex of the pilot and crew. If that is the only reason that the pilot got the job, it is not safe to be in this metal cylinder. It has been crossing my newsfeed a few times this week that pilot errors are increasing. Planes are falling to the ground, and yet this is somehow a signal that we need more diversity. Couple this with the TSA and you have one more reason not to fly. More companies go woke. Pixar and Sports Illustrated once produced products that everyone wanted. I never cared much for the latter as it was lewd, but I digress. Both companies are laying off large portions of their staff. While the reason for Pixar's problem has been thoroughly documented, the problem with Sports Illustrated is not that different. It started with them putting overweight and biological men on the cover of their swimsuit editions. I never would have known before this because I do not care about them, but I digress. Their target audience is not exactly too keen on being woke at every turn. Therefore, they are changing their business strategy to appeal to people who probably would not use their product anyway. Russians fleeing Ukraine. I do not trust what the media is saying about the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. I wholeheartedly believe that since we have Operation Mockingbird is here to remind you to never question the official narrative. Controlling the narrative. How well the Ukrainians are doing might be related to how much money we are giving them. And the military-industrial complex has too much to gain from the war continuing. Now the report is that Russians are fleeing from Ukrainian soldiers so much so that they are choosing where they will die. I cannot confirm this, nor would I trust the official story. Either way, I will be glad when this is over so that we do not have to fund a war between two authoritarians. Suddenly accusing Trump. I find it so fascinating that so many women decide to go after powerful men only when they start to get more influential. Either they are more concerned with getting a bigger payout than seeking justice, or they were ordered to make up a story when it was the most damaging. We saw this with Kavanaugh when the floozy could not keep her story straight. And we saw this with Skanky Daniels and President Trump. Even if the charges were true, we are electing a president, not a pope. Now more charges are being levied against him. I for one think that it is such an amazing coincidence that these charges are popping up as soon as the criminal charges are falling apart, and the Supreme Court has taken up the case of the mostly peaceful protests of January 6th. Tourist charges may be dropped. This could rock a lot of lower courts' rulings of people who have been charged with disrupting an official proceeding. While I am not a lawyer, nor do I identify as a lawyer, here is the short version. The Supreme Court is hearing the appeal of one Joseph Fisher. If the Supreme Court rules in his favor, the DOJ may have to release countless people who have been wrongfully imprisoned after they were led into the Capitol, took selfies with the Capitol Police, and at least one person got a guided tour. We have a corrupt criminal justice system, and the Supreme Court is the last hope that these people have before going to the Supreme Judge. However, the Supreme Court also made a poor call. Supreme Court wants a caravan. In lieu of having a wall that Bill Clinton once supported, Governor Abbott has set up razor wire along the southern border. The Biden administration sued to get the razor wire that was protecting the southern border from the illegal surging the border taken down. Even though the head of the Border Patrol Union said that cutting the wire made it harder for them to do their job, the Biden administration is more concerned with the chance to turn conservative states blue. After all, that is the only reason that they want these caravans to come through. If these illegals were voting red, Obama would have started a wall on his first day in office. However, in beautiful civil disobedience, Texas is putting up more razor wire. After all, if the Biden administration does not have to secure the border, it is up to us. Now, let us move on to Oklahoma, where a new bill really hits the nail on the head. Oklahoma animal control. Oklahoma has a bill in their legislature about furries in public schools. If passed, children who insist on acting like animals in school would have to be picked up by their parents. If they cannot be picked up by their parents, they would be picked up by animal control. After all, we need to treat these children how they identify. Now, I honestly do not think that this has much of a chance of passing, but it is worth a shot. If children want to pretend to be a cat or a dog at home, that is up to them and their parents. However, if they want to do that and disrupt the learning process for everyone else, that is another issue altogether. These children need to learn to act like responsible adults. Liberals opened the floodgates with transgenderism, then they blew up the dam with transracialism. Now transableism and transspeciesism have come on through. It would be funny if it were not so tragic. Bribing Kerry Lake. The deep state went through a lot of underhanded work to win in Arizona. From the person running against Lake being in charge of certifying the election, to voting centers conveniently not working, even to the point of Katie Hobbs pulling a Joe Biden and refusing to debate in the open. Is it any coincidence that this is the same state where all these secret bases for illegals are popping up? This is everything that the deep state has done, but this most recent one takes the cake. The head of the GOP in Arizona tried to bribe Lake into getting out of politics once and for all, even though the people love her. Could it be that he was working for the same puppet masters as the DNC? Either way, after the recordings of the bribe surfaced, the aforementioned head of the GOP in Arizona stepped down. He claims that it was taken out of context, but I think it is quite clear. The same Republican establishment that is made of RINOs is the same one that would try and remove Lake. Speaking of RINOs, Democrats voting for Haley. Nikki Haley is still running against President Trump despite the fact that she has no chance of winning. At the recent primary in New Hampshire, something interesting came up. Virtually all of President Trump's voters were registered Republicans, with a few independents and Democrats jumping ship. However, virtually all of Haley's supporters were independents and Democrats jumping ship. This means that she lost, despite the fact that virtually all of her votes came from people who were Democrats. People on the ground and even the fake news is willing to admit that this is being done to get Haley to run against Biden. Then these people will switch back to Democrat and support Biden. As DeSantis said, Haley represents the worst part of the swamp. This is all part of the plan by the people who actually run the show behind the scenes. Supporting Strickland. Sean Strickland is a boxer that I have never heard of before this week. Because just like Sports Illustrated, I do not care about sports in general. Before the latest fight in Canada, he had a press conference in which a reporter tried to ask him a question about sodomites. What this had to do with the fight in question, I cannot tell you. Either way, Strickland went into a tirade against Trudeau and how he shut down the trucker protest as only a tyrant could. Then during the fight, we heard this from the crowd. Clearly, the people in Canada support Strickland. I do not give blanket support to celebrities, not even Strickland. However, the fact that the fake news does not want him to speak speaks volumes. Maybe I'm just blowing smoke. Maybe I'm completely off my rocker, but that is just my opinion. And do not forget to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe for more. But before you go, on the left I have last week's video, but you may also enjoy the video on the right.